Hey there to all our returning viewers, welcome back. Otherwise, welcome to the Hey Lady YouTube channel. Today, we are diving into a powerful conversation with Veronica llorca-smith, author of The Lemon Tree Mindset. Now, Veronica's book is all about how to reinvent yourself when life gives you lemons. And let's be honest, we've all been there. We chat a lot about the concepts in her book, and in this conversation, Veronica shares real, relatable stories and practical mindset shifts that will help us to stop waiting for permission to start taking small but intentional action. One of my favorite concepts that Veronica introduces is the idea of taking those lemons that life's given you and using the seeds to plant your own lemon tree. So whether you're navigating change in life, maybe you're chasing a new dream, or maybe you're just trying to get unstuck, this episode is going to inspire you, and it's going to give you the practical tools to take the next step. Now, I'm Emma, co-founder of Hey Lady, and I cannot wait for you to hear today's episode. Here's my conversation with Veronica. I'm so excited to get started, ladies. We are going to be talking about, we're going to talk about reinvention, we're going to talk about resilience, and we are going to talk about the lemon tree mindset. Now, if that introduction sounds a little intriguing to you, it's probably because you haven't yet read The Lemon Tree Mindset by Veronica llorca-smith, who you can see here on screen. And I am super excited that I have the opportunity to not only introduce you to her fabulous book today, but actually to have the pleasure of meeting her and speaking with her directly here today. And you might be wondering, how has this opportunity come about? And that is the really exciting part of the story today. It's a story of collaboration. It is a story of connection and contribution and courage, all core values of the Hey Lady community and what it means for us all to be here today. So we are being introduced to Veronica because Christine, our incredible big sister here at Hey Lady, she decided to host a reading circle about Veronica's book right here inside Hey Lady. Now, Christine and some of the other ladies who joined her for her reading circle, they really dove into the lemon tree mindset. They spent about 6 months reading and analyzing the language, learning new words, really trying to understand these concepts and discuss the concepts that are inside the book as they related to their own lives. And when Christine and the group finished reading the book, Christine did the smallest but most significant thing of all, which is to reach out to Veronica and express gratitude to her about how much that reading circle loved her book. And I know that many of those ladies who joined Christine's reading circle are here with us today. So if you are here with us, make sure you let us know in the comments if you joined Christine's reading circle and you're really excited that you have this opportunity to meet and to speak with Veronica today. Veronica, thank you so much for being so generous to offer your time today for the benefit of Christine, for our community, for me as well. It was actually Christine's prompting right here for this opportunity that led me to start learning about your work. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity, Christine, for making all of this happen today. And I'm very excited to get started. Welcome, Veronica. As you can see, Hey Lady is it's a place where women around the world, and you can see from all the comments where everyone's jumping in from. You can see we've got ladies in India, we've got ladies in Italy, the UK, Turkey, Greece, Israel, Uzbekistan. So there's lots and lots of us here, and we connect like this regularly with each other to talk and to speak, to share our perspectives and grow confidence together. So you can see how the lemon tree mindset is just such a lovely way for our community to connect with your concepts and ideas. Tell us a little bit about uh, your background and your personal journey and what inspired you to write the Lemon Tree Mindset.
Absolutely. And it's such a pleasure to be here. I think the first word that I would like to use to be here is humbling. I wrote this book 2.5 years ago, and I never thought that 2.5 years later, I would be here with 100 ladies from all over the world to discuss the work that I did in a point of time in my life when I was unemployed. And so it's just so beautiful to kind of close the circle that way and realize that we have the power to reach and touch so many people. And sometimes in the moment, we don't realize, but when we zoom out and we look back, we realize the potential that we all have. And so that's my first message, how important it is to believe in yourself and to plant your seed. A little bit about my journey. So I saw and I was so excited to see all the countries that were popping up in the chat. I'm originally from Spain and I'm actually here now in the Canary Islands. That's where my family is from. But I've always lived in many countries. From the age of 5, I started moving with my family. So just to say a few countries, I lived in France, in Brazil, in the Netherlands, in Italy. And I've spent the last, in my entire career really, like 20 years in China. I moved there when I was very young to study Chinese, first to Taiwan, and then China, and now Hong Kong is home. But so about my journey and how this all started, when I was living in Hong Kong during the pandemic, I decided to go on holidays with my two daughters who were very young at the time. They were 4 and 5. And once I was out of the country, they changed the quarantine policy and we were unable to go back home. My husband was there, our dog was there, our house was there, and we weren't able to go back. And I thought it was going to be temporary, but it wasn't. As you all know, we all have a COVID story. And it got extended and extended. And what I thought was going to be a couple of weeks ended up being over a year. We ended up going to Australia because my husband, Dave, is Australian. And I thought that we were going to start a new life there because we couldn't go back to our old life. And I started to look for a job. I looked for a job for a month, for 3 months, and after 6 months, I wasn't successful, and I started to have a lot of doubts and insecurities about myself. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I don't have the right network. Maybe, and maybe. And one day I realized that if I couldn't find the place where people valued me, then I was going to build that place myself. And for me, that was the turning point. That was the day that I decided to plant that seed that was the beginning of everything that I started doing later. That book, The Lemon Tree Mindset, is the first that I wrote, but is the first of four. So that's why I talk about a seed, because that was really the beginning. That was really the first page of a book that is much longer than the actual lemon tree mindset. And I'll pause here so that we can have a bit of an interaction.
Yeah, amazing to have that backstory because I think there are so many little elements of your story that are familiar or reflect the lives of the women who are here inside Hey Lady and the challenges that they're all currently working to overcome as well. But to kick us off, one of the sort of central ideas in the book is this idea of reinvention in those times that are difficult. And you introduce the concept of planting your own lemon tree. When life gives you lemons, plant the seeds to create something new and interesting and different and reinvent, that moment in your life. And, you talk a little bit about some of those little triggers where you were in Australia, you were the life that you thought you were chasing kind of didn't happen in the way that you thought it was going to. And you reinvented yourself in that moment. And one of the questions that I have for you is like in those moments where you are feeling really frustrated or disappointed and you're sort of in survival mode, what were you going through to reinvent where you were in life and create a new opportunity for yourself? It feels like in those moments, that's when it's most difficult to imagine something different.
That's such a great question. And I bring it back to the story that we tell ourselves, because I think that's so important, because your reality is really what you tell yourself about the circumstances. And at that moment, I remember very vividly, there was this one day, and it was precisely in July 2022. So 3 years ago. I was on the beach on the Gold Coast with my two daughters, and it was a beautiful day. It was sunny. They were playing in the water. And at that point, I was feeling very frustrated because I came from the corporate world and I couldn't understand why I wasn't able to look for a job. I had been in great companies like Apple, like Estee Lauder. And looking at them and at that beautiful day, I was like, wow, I'm actually pretty lucky to be in this beautiful part of the world. I'm a mom, which was always one of my dreams. I have all this experience on my back, and no one can take that away from me. And I realized that the story that I was telling myself then was the story of a victim, was the story of this is happening to me. And I wasn't really in the driver's seat. I realized that very often when my friends would ask me, oh, how's it going? Are you finding a job? I would say things like, oh, no, it's very difficult here because I'm a foreigner, or English is not my first language and they're looking for native speakers, or, well, I'm new here and I don't know people, I don't have a network, so that's why I can't find a job. But that day I realized that that was the story that I chose to tell myself. Poor me. I'm the one who does not have opportunities. This is happening to me. And at that point, I realized that actually, what if I jumped in the driver's seat, and what if I told myself a different story? And I decided that instead of taking the victim's role, I was going to look around at what I had. And by that, I mean my assets, my experience, my values, and how to use all of that and leverage all of that to create something. And so, back to your question of what do you do when you're feeling trapped or when you're in those situations of survival mode, the question that I have for the ladies today is, what is the story that you're telling yourself very honestly? And you don't have to share this with us, but really for yourself, because this is a self-awareness exercise. And then the second one is there a different story that you could tell yourself? And that just opens so many possibilities. Let me give you another example related to that specific scenario. I was telling myself, oh, I don't have a job, as if it was something very negative. But then I told myself, look, I've been in the corporate world working 9 to 5. It was more 9 to 7, probably, for years, for over a decade. Never had this time to myself to think, to be creative, to do something new. What if instead of using that time to complain about what I don't have, I use it for something else? Study. I hadn't studied, I think, since I was in university. Learn about new areas. Start writing. So I started posting on LinkedIn. That was my very first interaction or touch point with the digital world. And so it went back to this idea of what is the story that you're telling yourself and what is a new story that you could tell yourself. And one little comment here that I would like to add about the book, that I don't mention this in the book, I believe, but the main idea of the book, as you said, Emma, is that when life gives you lemons, as you know, in English we say use the seed, make lemonade, right? That's the standard sentence. But I changed it into use the seeds to plant your lemon tree. And I use that for two reasons. One is this idea of growth mindset and abundance. Why are you only going to make lemonade when you can actually plant an entire lemon grove? But the other thing is that English is not my first language. And so it was a little wink of like, it's still okay. It's not your language. And so you can play around with it and create your own story. So that's why I wanted to change the standard phrase and make my own.
I love that. I'm going to jump in and just say, I love that mindset of, hey, this isn't my native language, but I still get to play with it and I still get to um, take control of it in the way that I need it to be and to tell the story that I want to tell. And so I love just that little snippet there. I think that what you were answering there, and maybe tied into the question that I asked, Anna, who's also she's in Spain, Spain proper, was reading the book. I must have been with you, Christine, and she talks about a couple of the ideas that we just shared there, talking about turning lemons into lemonade, and wandering around how you maintain that mindset in terms of in those moments of crisis. She did ask, do you think that anyone can adopt this mindset of the lemon tree mentality, or does it require a particular type of person or disposition, is the word that she used?
That's a really great question because very often we might have these limiting beliefs, perhaps that something is not for me. I know that when I started writing, I used to think that I can't really be an author, or I can't really be a writer. And so I would say I write. I would never say I am a writer. And so I think it does go back to what you tell yourself, to that positive language and how you reinforce this initial message of this is what I want to do. This is the value that I can add. And so I think telling yourself that you can is so important. I think it was this a famous phrase in English that says, if you believe it's possible, you're right. And if you believe it's impossible, you're also right. And so I believe that absolutely you can tell yourself and manifest. And it's not only about manifesting, it's manifesting plus action. But you can't take the action without manifesting. And so telling yourself, whatever your situation is, maybe you're unemployed, well, what can you do? And convincing yourself that you have what it takes either to find a job or to create one or to become a freelancer. But I think that when it comes to mindset, everyone can have a positive mindset if you work on it and if you make sure that you have like this positive self-talk. Everyone can choose abundance over scarcity. You can say, oh, I only have this today, or I have all of this today. As I was saying before, with time, you can tell yourself, oh, I'm unemployed, I don't know what to do. Or actually, I'm unemployed, I have all this time in my hands. What am I going to do with that time? So I don't know the specifics of the situation, but pretty much any situation that you have, you always have different versions to look at it. And sometimes it's good to almost remove yourself from the equation, take a bit of distance and say, what is the different reading that I can make of this situation? Another very good example is English as a second language. I believe for all the ladies who are in this community, except for Emma, probably, I don't know about the rest, but for many of us, English is a second language. And so we might tell ourselves, oh, I could never speak in public in English. I used to tell myself that. Also, as an introvert, I never thought that I could really speak in public. And then I said, well, why not? Why not? Because if I'm able to speak in English and if I have an accent, it actually means that I speak another language. Why should this be an obstacle and not an opportunity? And something that years ago I told myself that I can't do this because I have an accent, because English is not my first language. Because yes, I might say a few words wrong, but actually today I do public speaking for big companies like UBS, like S&P Global. And so again, it goes back to the story that you tell yourself. And I know that with language, it can create a lot of imposter syndrome and a lot of limiting beliefs. And please do not let your accent hold you back. If anything, I'm very proud to have a Spanish accent. I used to think that I had to change it and sound more Australian. And now I'm like, no, this is who I am. And this is great because it's my identity. So I'm going to build on what I have.
Yeah, I love all of that. And I think that, this idea of flipping the script or, identifying those limiting beliefs and those moments. I think Anna was talking about, like, I get the theory, but there's always those times where it feels hard. It feels like it's not working. It feels like you're showing up in a way that you're an imposter or, you're not enough. And what I was taking from you there is this positive self-talk is essential, but it's also the practice of continually doing it. Because I think that where lots of people get trapped or stuck is like, well, I've been just telling myself in my head, I'm fine, like I can do it, I can do it. And that somehow that's not enough, that's not working. And what you keep talking about here is continually identifying and recognizing where those limiting beliefs are kind of popping back in and doing the work to make sure that your headspace and your mindset are supporting you in the best way possible. That's what I was getting anyway. Hopefully that was right. One of the things that I think lots of people really, really appreciate about your work, and certainly I do as well, because this is the way that I like to work. But your whole book is structured and organized around taking really specific and intentional, but small little steps, bite-sized action. And that is something that we certainly preach here at Hey Lady as well, that it is these little intentional steps in the direction that you are trying to get that really have the biggest impact overall. And that's how you've structured the lemon tree mindset around different lessons. I think there's 19 of them in total. And each one of those has like an exercise or a little practical task to complete. So in developing the book and these different ideas that came through in the book, why was it so important to you to keep things actionable? Not just as a way of receiving information, but turning it into practice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I put myself in the shoes of a reader, and I realized that just like all of us, I've read so many books throughout my life. Many of them are personal development, self-improvement, and things like that. And very often I would finish the book and I'd say, oh, this was such a great book, but I wouldn't actually take action.
Mm.
And if you read 10 books and if you don't read, and if you read 20 books and you don't take action, then everything remains here, but it doesn't really translate into action. It doesn't really translate into the self-improvement that you're trying to achieve. And on the other hand, you might take one action. Maybe you just read one book and you decide to take one action, and that is transformational. And it doesn't have to be a big step, as you're saying. It's a small step, but it's consistent and it's incremental. And so that was really what I was trying to achieve. It wasn't a trilogy, it wasn't going to be a huge thing. I just wanted to have something concise, not only taking an action, which was very important for me, but I also wanted to have a personal story sharing how I did it, so that it wasn't just theory or it wasn't just go and do this. I really wanted to walk the talk with the readers and say, this is how I have done it, to give you ideas, to give you inspiration for your own practice, and then make sure there was something very tangible and very specific, because I didn't want people to finish the book and tell their friends, oh, I read this book, it was great. Oh, and what have you done about it? Oh, not much, but I will. I wanted people to take action and say, oh, I read this book, and as a result, I started writing, or I started building my personal brand, or I joined a community of ladies, for example. So that was really the goal, like putting myself in the shoes of the person reading and saying, what do I really want to achieve with this? It's not just a story, it's not just my story. I want it to be the story of the reader, and that can only happen if I'm able to compel you to take action.
Ah, I love that. And I love that Elaine has dropped a message in here for you. She says that she wants to thank you for the lemon tree and thank Christine for creating the event inside Hey Lady because of the event and because of exploring your book, she's finally started writing articles in her native language on Medium. And for a long time, she kept her music inside her, but she realized that she has a gift and she's sharing it with the world. And so that's just an example, just one example from the ladies here inside our community where your work and your intention has had that impact and that effect that you're talking about here. So that is phenomenal, Veronica, just to know that you have this impact on the lives of the people who read and take action because of your book.
So can I add something?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
sure.
because Veronica, I want to let you know that so reading your book together help us building a sense of the community and the trust. It's really important because we understand that we weren't and we are not alone in our challenges. And it's really important. So many ladies said to me, like, this book helped me to consider myself in different perspective, or better, help me to feel stronger inside. So it's a really easy book, but believe me, it's so powerful. It's not a cliche, but it's so powerful. So thank you again, Veronica, for your book. And thank you, ladies, to help me to understand better how is important the community and to stay connect and share together.
You talk about that a lot, Veronica, about building networks and the importance of the people around you as influencing how you think, how you show up, the opportunities that you create for yourself as well. Evgenia had a really great question here. She just wants to also let you know that you're a talented writer and an amazing personality. You mentioned that you had moved to a lot of places throughout your childhood and throughout your life. Do you think that that rich experience of living in different places and moving around and meeting lots of people helped you not to give up in those challenging situations, and to shift that mindset from I'm the victim to I'm going to survive this, I'm going to find my way through?
Yes, absolutely. Because when you move countries, and I love to know actually the participants today have moved countries, you always face a lot of challenges. And it's a very good example where you can really tell yourself the story that you choose. For example, when I was 5, we moved to France and I went to a different school. It was in a different language. We didn't know the culture. We didn't have friends. And it was really quite hard to be so isolated and alienated. I didn't actually understand that they spoke a different language. To me, at 5 year old, I just understood that we were all the same. And at that point, I realized actually I'm not. I'm different. And there, at a very young age, you start to realize that you have to make an effort and you have to step out of your comfort zone and you have to learn a new language and learn different games and things like that. And that was from a very young age. But the same pattern kept repeating itself. When I was 11, we moved to Brazil, different language. It was Portuguese. Then when I was 15, we moved to the Netherlands. I was a teenager, so that was quite hard. And I think this is a particular example with moving countries and that particular challenge. But I do believe that every time you face an obstacle in life, whether it's moving to a different language, whether it's a breakup, whether it's losing your job, you have all these different obstacles. And yes, they do help you grow strength. They help you have perspective. They help you go back to your values and see what matters to you. And so, yes, in that particular case, absolutely. I think it gave me so much courage and so much strength. But even if you haven't moved countries, when you look back at your journey, you will find these point in time where you faced a challenge and you had to grow from it, and there's so many lessons that you learn. And again, you can decide to be the victim, but you can also turn things around. And I love your expression of flipping the script and rewrite that narrative. And how can this help you? What did you learn from these? So absolutely, it goes back to this positive mindset that we were talking before, on how you have the power not to change what happens to you, but to be in control of how you react to it. And I think that's a beautiful phrase of 90% or 10% is what happens to you, and 90% is how you react to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, you had all of these experiences that at the time undoubtedly would have been really challenging. And, even as a child, not necessarily having the ability to take control of your mind in the way that you were experiencing things, especially as a teenager. I'm sure that was a difficult time. But it's all about building that resilience, right? And as you say, flipping the script is part of building resilience to face the next challenge that's coming your way, and undoubtedly coming your way as well. There's always going to be something else, but every experience that you have gets to influence the way that you face challenges in the future. And I think that's really beautiful. I wanted to ask Christine, what core concept or idea from the book was the one that resonated with you the most?
Yeah, for me personally, the important it was take your time to reflect about yourself, your passion. So for me, it's so uh, powerful to consider all my time, not only for other things, so due to my commitments, but just to think about myself and start by my passion. Another thing I would like to share with you, ladies, for me, the important is the community, like Hell Lady community. So we can support each other without judgment, So we support each other to achieve our goals because we are in the same page, ladies, the same boat. So this is for me, it's really important. Take your time to reflect and then create your community, your network. And don't be afraid about nothing. Just jump into. So look at me, ladies. I'm a learner as you, and I'm here. It's incredible, But I follow the suggestion by Hema before and then Veronica. Just give it a try. Why not? Everything it's a lesson, and you can learn from each lesson. No problem at all. Don't worry about your mistakes, about your afraid to be judgment, because it's about you, your life, your strategy, your path. It's about you because you are only you in 8 billion in the world, right, Veronica? Thank you.
Honestly, I just keep this opportunity and this conversation and all of us being here together just constantly reminds me of how important it is to have this kind of energy around you as you're traversing those challenges in life. Veronica, I have a couple of questions that ladies had sent in beforehand that I wanted to get to today. Angela asked a question about the chapter where you talk about anchors. And you talk about recognizing these anchors and trying to pick them up. But her question was, how do you realize or recognize that there are anchors in your life? And maybe you can explain that concept just a little for some of the other ladies who may not have read the book yet.
Yes, absolutely. And I love metaphors. I think it's such a great way to help people visualize an idea. And I talk about anchors, and I also talk about putting the sails up to help you move forward. So anchors are the things that hold you back. Think of a boat, right? It's what keeps you there, still not moving. So it goes back to those limiting beliefs and that story that you tell yourself that prevent you from taking action. And back to what Christine was saying about having time to yourself, very often we don't have time to pause and think and reflect. And when we take that moment to ourselves, when we honor time and we start to reflect on the situation, we realize that a lot of it is actually your subjective assessment of that particular situation. And so anything that is subjective, it means that can be changed, it can be modified, it can be turned around. So for the ladies, and especially the lady who asked the question, I would encourage you to look at a particular situation that you feel is a negative one. Perhaps you're not able to get a job, or you would like to start something, but you're not starting it. Or maybe you're a mom. I think that's a very good example. I have kids and I used to tell myself, oh, I can't do these. Maybe I can't exercise because I have children. I don't have time. Well, we all have the same time. So how do we prioritize, for example? That's such a great question. I made an intention of not saying I don't have time. I don't say this anymore because I want to go deeper and say, I do have time. Maybe it's not a priority. Why is it not a priority? Should it be a priority? But this has been so transformational for me when I said, no, it's not about not having time. It's about how I decide to spend it. And so it goes back to the anchors. How many times we say, oh, I don't have time. I would love to start doing this. I would love to learn a language, but I don't have time. Look at your phone. This is an exercise that I do every week. I don't like the results. How many hours do we spend on the phone every week? My case, 4 or 5 is embarrassing. There is my time. There is my time for exercising or for learning another language or for connecting with the community. And so, what are your anchors? Is a question that only you can answer, but it starts with self-awareness. It starts with digging deep and looking and finding your own demons, to be honest.
Yeah. And facing them as well, because I think it's easy to sort of sweep that thing to the side, especially when you've got something like your phone to distract you and sort of push it away. I really wanted, Veronica, just to read out a comment from Reshma, because it's so beautiful. She says, thank you so much, Veronica, for the lemon tree mindset. Reading this incredible book alongside the other amazing women here has been a truly transformative experience. It helped me to reconnect with my personal brand, revisit goals that I had put aside, and even inspired me to share my progress on LinkedIn. And over the past few weeks, this journey through your book has guided her inward, discovering parts of herself that she had forgotten. And she's just deeply grateful to you, Veronica, to Christine for bringing everyone together, and to the entire Hey Lady team for creating the space that allows this type of thing to happen. And I just thought that that so perfectly sums up, the reason that we're here, all of us together today. And we're really grateful for that opportunity. I know we are almost out of time, and I can still see that there are some interesting comments and questions here. Veronica and Christine, I was wondering if you could stay for a few more minutes, if that would be okay. All right. Awesome. I can't walk past this question from Danny, one of our English coaches here at Hey Lady. And I know Danny's going to be totally vibing with everything that's being discussed up here today. She was asking, Veronica, if you can speak to feeling low and procrastinating and knowing that you should be doing something, but being stuck and ashamed and depressed in that place, knowing that you're not taking action, knowing the action you should take, but not actually taking it. Do you have any kind of strategies or advice around those moments? I certainly am familiar with that space myself.
I'm smiling because I did not know that this question was coming, but I mentioned at the beginning of the session that the Lemon Tree Mindset was my first book. And since then, I've published 4. And my last book, which was actually published by Penguin Random House, is called The Anti-Procrastinator. So I have been thinking a lot about that topic because it's so common, Danny, to feel low and to go into the guilt trip and to blame yourself perhaps if you're not taking action. So the first thing is that you're not alone. And we all procrastinate. One of the things I talk about in the book, it goes back to self-awareness. The central idea of the book is that you have to learn how to know yourself so that you know what your demons are. And back to Emma's point, not only know what they are, but face them and tackle them face on. And so the first thing is to acknowledge that this is normal, but then it's about going deeper and understand why this is happening. One thing that was so helpful for me, and I talk about it in this book, is to understand what type of procrastinator you are. And I actually have 6 different profiles that I talk about, and not that people are personas, but it was so helpful as a self-awareness exercise to understand why am I procrastinating for this specific task? And to give you very quickly some of these profiles, because I think it's helpful. Let's start with the perfectionist. Very often we don't do something. I didn't want to write a book in English because I thought my level of English wasn't there. And so when we put this bar too high, the result is that we don't take action. So if you're a perfectionist, forget about the bar. Take an action. Maybe it's a first medium article, like we were saying before, and that's your starting point. So that's for the perfectionist. Some of the time we're a dreamer. Maybe someone today is thinking, oh my God, she's published a book. I would love to publish a book. And we have like this dream and this fantasy, but we never take action. And so maybe the answer there is, okay, how do you operationalize a dream and start doing something? It doesn't have to be a book straight away. It could be your first post in public, so that you take your writing from a journal that is secretly hidden in your room to something that's public. And so I go with these with different profiles. Another one, for example, is the rebel. The rebel is when you have to achieve a task, but it gives you a lot of anxiety and you feel frustrated. You think that you shouldn't be doing that. Think about bureaucracy. Think about applying for a visa, for example, and they're asking you the same information again and again. And so you procrastinate for something on something that you know that you have to do. And instead of doing it, you're actually wasting all that energy into complaining and being frustrated about it. So I think back to the question, very normal to embrace that feeling and say, okay, I'm feeling negative, I'm not taking action. But then with self-awareness, realize what is holding me back. Is it fear? Am I afraid of failure? Am I not writing in public because I'm afraid of what people are going to say? All of these things were hovering above my head when I started my new journey and my new career as a writer. And so that's the process. Start with embracing the feeling that you're having, because we don't want to be promoting toxic positivity. That doesn't really help. So yes, this is how I'm feeling. I accept it, but now I'm going to take action. So first, let's be self-aware. What is this anchor that's holding me back? And what do I need to do to lift the sail so that I can move forward? So I hope this gives you an idea. I won't tell you the other types of procrastinators so that you can find them in the book.
I love that this concept of there's not just one type of procrastinator. I feel like that's just opened up a whole new way of approaching procrastination, because I think it's like it's only ever spoken about as if it's this one thing, and we all do it, obviously. But I'm so curious to read your book and to find out more about these different types of procrastinators. And I imagine different strategies apply to those different types of procrastinators. So I'm super excited about reading that book. Veronica, thank you for sharing it. In the chat here, I'm just going to share, for those of you who are interested in learning more from Veronica, she has an amazing Substack where she shares lots of great content, but from there you'll also be able to find her book, The Lemon Tree Mindset, and also I imagine your other books as well. And it was The Anti-Procrastinator. You had it, Christine. Have you started reading it? Perfect. Yes. I think this is the one that most
I'm
of us are
ready
dive
to start another circle. Yeah, another reading circle about this book.
Oh, okay,
I'm
ladies. So
ready to start.
if you're interested, make sure you check in with Christine. It sounds like there's a new reading circle happening inside of Hey Lady this week or next week. All right, that sounds absolutely amazing, says Alana as well. Evgenia is saying she loves the idea of encouraging, heartwarming environment where we're not afraid of being judged. And Hey Lady is a place where I got back to a long forgotten passion for writing. In fact, Veronica, we have a section inside Hey Lady, our memberzine, which is where our amazing members write and publish their own articles within the community. And like you were saying, that step of publishing your words in English, for the very first time can be a really daunting thing so many of the ladies who are here inside our community can relate to and are familiar with that specific experience. Evgenia wants to say, she wants to ask, along with the feeling of support of your family and friends while you were, oops, I just lost it, while you were on the way towards recovery, did you find any new sources of inspiration? People, books, ideas, that she's curious if you've got anything to share in relation to that.
There is one topic that we haven't talked about that is very big for me, and is the power of sports. I am a triathlete, so that's one of the things that I do as a hobby. I've been doing it for many years, and it's something that has helped me not only physically, but also mentally. And we talked about network a little bit before. And when I was by myself in Australia during that period, joining communities of sports. So I joined a triathlon club, a swim club, and a run club. It was such a fantastic way to get exposure to new people, to be part of a new community, to have this sense of belonging, to have clarity as well. I always say that when you run, my run starts with a problem and ends with a solution. And I always talk about these two worlds of sports and creating together, because I think there's so much that they can add to each other. Physical resilience gives you mental resilience, and vice versa. You need a lot of mental resilience to be able to do sports. So for me, it wasn't something new, but it was one of the tools that I had there in my toolbox that I knew was going to help me at all these different levels. And so if you're feeling low, if you don't have clarity, I always encourage people to go outside, go for a walk, a jog, go for a swim, walk the dog, whatever that is. That's definitely something that helped me and that opened new doors, friendships, new connections. I did some races. So it was really something that has helped me not only in that particular situation, but throughout my life. I have found a lot of strength and a lot of confidence in sports.
I couldn't agree more, actually. This is one of the strategies, when I'm talking to ladies who've moved to Australia, which is where I am, or to another English speaking country, that one of the best strategies to feel connected to the place and the people and this new environment is through sports teams, showing up, doing some physical activity, but also creating those opportunities to meet people and make those connections as well. There's one last comment here that we will use to wrap up our discussion today. Again, from Reshma. I think, Veronica, it sounds like your book has had such a profound impact on Reshma. Her journey it's helped her to discover her personal brand and realize the importance of showing up consistently. She's saying specifically chapters 13 and 14, building your personal brand and taking your personal brand online. And she's really, it sounds like, created a bit of a mantra and, made this just part of life for her. She's very committed to it, to showing up online with clarity, confidence, and purpose. And she feels like this is just the beginning of, a new chapter for her, I think. And that certainly rings really true with some of the ideas that we talk about a lot here inside Hey Lady, and that is owning your voice and your value and making yourself more visible and audible in a room or in an online space, but actually projecting yourself forward rather than shrinking into the background, which most of the time we often feel like is the easiest thing to do. When you're lacking confidence, you feel unimportant and you feel like you can't articulate your thoughts easily. And so, this concept of a personal brand and becoming a brand ambassador and can feel really intimidating and uncomfortable for lots of us, especially when we're feeling like we're imposters. But I think that, Reshma seems to have taken from your book this concept of taking small but intentional action to start to change the way that you're doing things in life. And I just wonder if you could talk for the last couple of minutes that we have together about how to take control of your mindset in a way that helps to project your voice, make yourself more visible, and show up in a way that is intentional, perhaps even before you feel like you're completely ready to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And first, congratulations to Reshma, because I know that it takes a lot of courage to take yourself from the background and start to use your voice and share your story. So I think that's wonderful. One of the mindset tricks that I use back to changing the narrative and rewriting the script is very often we think when we're scared of something, what's the worst that could happen? I know that I'm a victim of this. Like I always say, or I always think, what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst that can happen? And this is a terrible question because the worst case scenario, it's terrible. You start to think about all the bad things that can happen. What if I forget what I was going to say? What if it's not smart? What if no one shows up? My first webinar for my community, I was terrified. What if no one shows up? And then I said, well, what is the best that can happen? And when you flip the script, and you think about what is actually the best that can happen when you start, let's talk about the examples from today, writing on Medium, when you start speaking in a language that is not your first language, when you start showing up, when you publish your first book, then you start talking about opportunities. And so you go from fear to courage, and you go from limits to opportunities. And every time I try something new, and it's very often, I do a lot of new things, whether it's speaking in large conferences or things like that, I always think about what is the best case scenario and what are the opportunities that can come from that. And yes, it's scary, but it really changes the way that you look at everything. And in fact, to do the full circle today, when Christine reached out on LinkedIn to say that you had been reading my book and you were very grateful, I was so touched and humble. And I went back to Christine and I suggested, hey, why don't we do a session with your community? Wouldn't that be amazing? And instead of just locking myself and saying, oh, great, thank you. No, I wanted to be my ambassador. And I wanted to say, hey, this is not about me. This is about the impact that I can make on a community of 100+ women who want to build confidence, who want to build fluency in English. So why not? And the best case scenario is today, is the fact that we're here, is the fact that we're connected, is the fact that this little seed brought us together. So please do move from the what's the worst case scenario to what is the best case scenario, and then the opportunities will come.
I think that is the most perfect way to end our conversation today. Christine, you are such an example of just taking a little step and creating a new opportunity without the intention. You never planned for this entire moment to unfold in this way, but it was only by your sweet gesture and your gratitude that you wanted to express to Veronica that just made this moment possible for all of us. And I have to say that I am so grateful to you, Christine, and grateful to you, Veronica, and inspired to read your next book now. I feel like there are so many wonderful lessons that we can take from this conversation today, but also from your work. And I'm looking forward to that. Thank you both for being here. It's been incredible. Wow, how inspiring was that conversation? If you're still here watching now, I know that you enjoyed it just as much as I did. So please do like this video, subscribe to our channel if you'd like to tune in for more of these interesting discussions. It really does help other women around the world to get connected with these stories and this advice. So any like and subscribe that you make helps us to reach more of those women around the world. Now, if you'd like to connect with Veronica, you can do that with the links down in the description or in the show notes. And of course, if you're a woman who speaks English as her second language, this is your invitation to come and see what Hey Lady is all about. You can get started with a free 7-day trial right now and probably join a conversation in the next 30 minutes as soon as you create your profile. The link to join Hey Lady is down in the description. I am so looking forward to seeing you speaking English with other women all around the world very soon. I'll see you inside.